Hello, I'm James Ezimoha. Welcome to Africa News, where we bring you the latest updates from across the African continent. Let's see your headlines. Autistic teenager in Nigeria breaks Guinness World Record for the largest artwork on canvas by an individual. Workers launch nationwide strike, crippling financial sector in Mali. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi meets new African Union mediator to resolve Eastern Congo crisis. Thank you for joining us. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has met with the African Union's new mediator, Togolese President Faure Gnassingbé, for talks on the crisis in Eastern Congo. Gnassingbé says he's keen to get the peace process moving as fighting between the Congolese forces and the M23 rebels continues. Chris Ocharimga has more from Kinshasa.
Togolese President Faure Gnassingbé has arrived in Kinshasa for his first meeting with his Congolese counterpart Felix Tshisekedi since his appointment as the African Union's new mediator of the armed conflict in eastern DRC. The leaders discussed the conflict between the M23 rebels and Congolese forces and the resumption of the Nairobi and Luanda peace processes. Gnassingbé has replaced the Angolan leader João Lourenço, who stepped down last month to focus on leading the African Union. Previous efforts to end the fighting in eastern DRC have not been successful. A recent initiative brokered by the Emir of Qatar led to calls for a ceasefire, which has been violated. The DRC accuses Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels to plunder its minerals, but Rwanda has denied the accusation and blamed Congolese officials for supporting a Rwandan militia that has been attacking the Tutsi ethnic group in eastern DRC. The armed conflict has left thousands of people dead and forced more than 4 million others to flee their homes since fighting broke out in late 2021. Chris Ocharimga, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Banks and businesses across Mali have shut down as financial sector workers launch a nationwide strike. The walkout, called by the National Workers' Union of Mali, is disrupting financial services in the country.
A 72-hour strike by Mali's financial sector began on Thursday, halting services in banks, insurance firms, and fuel companies across the country. The National Union of Banks, Insurance, Financial Establishments, Microfinance and Commerce of Mali, known as SINABEF, is protesting poor working conditions and the arrest of union members accused of financial malpractice. Failed talks with the government triggered the walkout. Union officials say they followed proper legal channels, but were forced to act after negotiations collapsed.
We filed a strike notice 3 days ago. When we filed it, we respected the 15-day period as stipulated by the labour laws. That's why this falls within the framework of what is provided by the labour regulations. When the 15 days following the filing passed, we noted the failure of the conciliation organised by the National Directorate of Labour, DNT, which took place on the 14th. We observed that the conciliation failed. We held a press conference to remind our members that the points raised in the notice had not progressed in our favour. Since there was no progress in our favour, we called on our members to comply with the strike order that began this morning.
Customers caught in the shutdown say the dispute should be settled in court, not at their expense.
We are bank customers. If the banks are in conflict with another entity and the courts have ruled, I think they should turn to the justice system. We carry out deposit and withdrawal operations, and I believe we should not have to suffer as a result.
SINABEF has threatened to extend the strike to 5 days starting April 22nd if their demands are not met. The government has yet to respond as economic and political tensions in Mali continue to mount.
An American pastor, Josh Sullivan, kidnapped during a church service in South Africa, has been rescued. Police say he was found unharmed after a shootout left 3 suspects dead.
In South Africa's Eastern Cape province, 45-year-old American pastor Josh Sullivan has been rescued after being kidnapped during a prayer service last week. Police say he was taken by armed men and held for several days before being found during a high-risk operation that ended in the deaths of 3 suspects. The elite Hawks police unit confirmed Sullivan's safe return after days in captivity.
We can now confirm the safe recovery of a 45-year-old American national victim who happened to be a local pastor, and the victim, who had been allegedly kidnapped in Kwamatagi location in Gqeberha, was safely reunited with his family.
Churchgoers who witnessed the abduction described the frightening moments as Sullivan was dragged from the pulpit.
I was at home preparing for going to church. Then my little brother came running at home, saying Thando Mfunisi is getting robbed. Then I quickly ran, and when I got in the corner, I saw 6 men. And I saw one of them wearing a red top. Then I stopped in the corner. Then I saw when they pulled Mfundisi out of the church, kicking him, holding him rough. They took him in his car, then they drove him away.
Sullivan's rescue comes amid a rise in kidnappings in South Africa, where criminal gangs increasingly target both locals and foreigners for ransom.
The South African church where American pastor George Sullivan was kidnapped has broken its silence. During a Good Friday service, church leaders praised his safe return. Sullivan was rescued after a police operation that left 3 suspects dead.
Will you accept my gift?
At Lighthouse Baptist Church in Eastern Cape Province, South Africa, fellow believers marked Good Friday with gratitude and reflection, days after the dramatic rescue of 45-year-old American pastor Josh Sullivan. Sullivan was abducted at gunpoint during a prayer service and freed by elite police forces following a deadly shootout, authorities said. They added that he was unharmed. Leading the Good Friday sermon, American missionary Brandon Byerly thanked the global Christian community and South African police.
We are first and foremost thankful to God, of course, for his mercies, for delivering Pastor Josh, and for his grace to us. We're very thankful to Pastor Josh's church, to all the church community, the Christians here and around the world that have been praying for him, and without ceasing. The Bible says pray without ceasing, and that's what they have lived this past week, is prayer without ceasing. And so we thank them for that. Also to the Hawks and SAPS for their tremendous role in all of this, and it was just an incredible thing to watch, and you know, we are very thankful for them and all that they have done for Pastor Josh's family.
South Africa continues to face a wave of ransom kidnappings amid growing insecurity. But in this case, this church says faith and swift police action made all the difference.
In Kenya's Nandi County, a decades-old land dispute is back in the spotlight. Local farmers occupying part of a British-owned tea estate say the land was promised to them, but the company insists the claim is exaggerated.
In Nandi, Kenya's tea-growing region, more than 100 residents are occupying 350 acres of the Saitoi estate, claiming it was gifted to them by the British-owned Eastern Produce Kenya, EPK, nearly 40 years ago. However, EPK says the gift was for 202 acres, 82 hectares, not the 550 acres, 222 hectares that the local farmers claim. The farmers argue it's a matter of correcting colonial-era injustice, as many trace their roots to ancestors who lived on the land before it was seized by British settlers in the early 1900s. Following a series of legal battles with the EPK, the chairman of the Kimisas Farmers Cooperative says he hopes to gain full ownership of the land one day.
My grandfather worked for EPK, Eastern Produce African Limited, and my father worked for EPK as well. I myself have worked for 16 years and together with others supervised the planting of this entire tea farm. Then I later even transferred to Savani, tea factory, which is EPK all the same. I am very happy that the court recognized us. It's like I was managing my own property then, even if it did not seem like it. But God had good plans for us. Now we own it, although not fully. But we pray that we will own it one day. That is my joy.
But EPK says the land in question was fairly distributed and warns of a dangerous precedent if the occupation continues.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially, yes, there can be other cases if they are allowed to. But in terms of land, it was given out at the right time to those squatters who were landless. And what remained was production areas.
Well settled.
With tensions rising and other estates already targeted, Kenya's tea industry now finds itself at the centre of a broader reckoning with the legacy of colonial land ownership and its modern-day consequences.
A 15-year-old Nigerian artist with autism has broken a Guinness World Record for the largest artwork on canvas by an individual. The non-verbal teenager unveiled his piece on World Autism Day to promote awareness and acceptance.
In Abuja, 15-year-old autistic artist Kanyeyachukwu Tagbo Okeke has made history with a 12,303 square meter artwork titled Impossibility is a Myth. Unveiled on April 2nd to mark World Autism Day, the piece highlights autism awareness and neurodiversity, featuring expressive faces and the infinity symbol, a common representation of the autism spectrum. Kanye's mother, Sylvia Tagbo Okeke, explains how his work carries a message of understanding and acceptance.
If you look at the painting, you see the infinity sign. That's autism, neurodiversity. So he's autistic, so that sign means awareness, acceptance, and then neurodiversity. And then if you see around, you see the faces, you see the sad faces, the smiley, the crying, and all that. And when Kanye was growing up, if you look at all his previous paintings, some of his previous paintings, if you go back in history, you see all those smiley faces, and that's what he has represented here.
Experts say autism in Nigeria remains poorly understood, with many families facing stigma and limited support.
A lot of people have a misconception of what autism is. They always, when they hear autism, they think either spiritual or psychiatric condition or just bad parenting, or they try to have a physical attribute that they can hold on to. But you see, autism is invisible. If I showed you my daughter today who's autistic, you wouldn't know that she's on the spectrum, and that's because autism has no visible features.
Kanye's world record artwork is more than just a visual feat. It's part of a growing movement to raise awareness, foster inclusion, and change how autism is understood in Nigeria and beyond.
In Madagascar, a centuries-old martial art is making a comeback. Moringe, once a training ritual, is now gaining recognition in the capital with efforts to professionalize the sport. Take a look.
Moringe, a traditional Malagasy combat sport dating back to the 17th century, is now drawing fresh attention in Antananarivo through public tournaments and national promotion efforts. Organisers aim to formalise the sport with rules, medical support and a national federation, while preserving its roots of respect and humility. For many fans, the renewed spotlight offers a glimpse into evolving styles and regional traditions.
I'm interested to see what's being done, what Moringe will be like in 2025. That's where I can see what developments are taking place, because there are young people from the north of Madagascar here. They told me that there's Moringe Watsa, fighting without kicking, and they're Moringe with kicks. That's why I come. It interests me.
Fighters say success depends on technique and never underestimating an opponent.
You should never underestimate an opponent. Everyone is different. Everyone has prepared. Everyone has made an effort. I made the effort to beat him using the quickest techniques and methods.
Organisers believe taking Morengi beyond rural areas could help it grow into a national sport.
We aim to make Morengi known throughout Madagascar at national level with this kind of event, because if it isn't, it will always remain a traditional rural sport where minorities will really enjoy it, whereas there is a national public that will be able to enjoy it. And I think Morengi will be able to go further. Morengi has real potential.
As Madagascar seeks to formalise Morengi, its growing popularity in the capital signals a broader revival. Advocates hope the sport can bridge tradition and modern recognition, both at home and beyond.
That's all we have today in African News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.